Hey guys, this is Ray with Think Big Websites, and I'm super excited today to have Michelle from the Entrepreneur Lawyers on this video recording with us. Now, truth be known, the Entrepreneur Lawyers they are a client of mine, and I'm a client of theirs in a way. I've used their services in the past for contracts that have proven to be invaluable right now to me, as well as I've done their website. So we have kind of that relationship going back and forth. And since I do websites for a lot of different businesses, there's a lot of questions that I get asked. And I thought, hey, Michelle, can you please just come on for a few moments? Let's tackle these tough questions that I get that are not so tough for you. And maybe we could help other business owners out there that are facing these same type of questions. So, uh, hello, Michelle. I just want to give you a second to introduce yourself as well, and then I'll get going with these questions. Can you tell us a little bit about you and the Entrepreneur Lawyers?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me, Ray. We've really loved working with you throughout the years. We feel so fortunate to have had the relationship that we have with you, and I hope to continue it long into the future. Hi everyone. My name is Michelle Note. I am the founder and CEO of the Entrepreneur Lawyers. We are the anti-stuffy business law firm. We serve as outside general concierge corporate counsel. That's a mouthful. Basically, we're your business attorneys for your entrepreneurial ventures, mostly serial entrepreneurs these days, but we help everyone from the startup to the business making the multi-million dollar exit. We do all of the above. So we help with structuring. But the biggest thing that I think we do that's invaluable to our clients is we're recovering litigators, although we do have a couple litigators on our team still. We look at your business and say, okay, where is their exposure? How can we minimize the risk of liability and lawsuits as we continue to scale? Because once you become successful, it's not if you're going to get sued, but when. And it's our job to protect you and make sure that you have the right documents and everything in place to avoid that.
That's great. I think your biggest asset is just how friendly you guys are and how truly you're not anti-stuffy. When I got on the phone with you guys, I really knew like, hey, I want to work with you guys. I didn't feel the pressure. I didn't feel any stress. You guys do a really, really good job with making me feel comfortable in the conversation. So I
Thanks, Ray.
appreciate that. Now, so talking exactly about that, and this has to do like with the startups. I know that I struggled. Should I get an LLC? Should I form an S or C Corp or an S Corp? And I didn't know, which way to go. Ultimately, I landed on doing an LLC. But can you kind of give us just a few minute explanation as to what key legal steps a startup business should do if they're deciding between all those different types of companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I think that you're going to want to look at as what entity structure do I choose is where am I going to be doing most of my business? So a lot of people have this fancy schmancy idea, oh, I should set up in Delaware, or lately, the coolest kid on the block is Wyoming or Nevada because of anonymity protections. But the reality is you really want to be looking at where are the principal officers going to be located? Where's most of the company's business going to be conducted? And if that state's laws are favorable to businesses such as Florida, Texas, and other states, um, that's probably where you're going to want to set up. And then once you figure out, okay, this is the state that we should set up in, you're going to want to look at what is more favorable and easier to get started, an LLC or a corporation. In most cases, and there's a partnership aspect of this too, but you usually don't see partnership structured as much as LLCs. They're the most common entity structure. And the reason for that is that an LLC has a lot more relaxed corporate formalities. So all you need to get started is filing your articles of organization with the state, which pretty much says we're an LLC. We're either going to be manager or member operated, and then any and all lawful purpose can be conducted. And then you have your operating agreement. That doesn't get publicly filed. The operating agreement is what dictates how your business is going to operate. With a corporation, it can be it doesn't have to be complicated, but there are a lot of additional factors you would want to consider, like having a shareholders agreement and things of that nature, not to mention taxation. With an LLC, you're taxed as a partnership, and I don't want to give tax advice. That's what your CPAs and your tax attorneys are for. But doing what we do, we of course have learned a lot through the years. The LLC is most often the best structure just because it's easy to set up, it's easy for taxation purposes. But I will caution you, there are states like Florida, which we're still trying to fix this, and I won't even get into the political reasons why I think we still have it around. But if you are a single member LLC in Florida and you have a judgment entered against you that the LLC doesn't have enough assets to satisfy, they can foreclose, which basically, I won't get into the legal terminology to keep it anti-stuffy. They can disappear that invisible shell that protects your personal liability from that company's liability. So, being a single member LLC in Florida, you really want to talk to an attorney and make sure it makes sense before you do that. Otherwise, you can set up as a corporation and still be taxed as an S Corp, and you can talk to your CPA about that, but there are also advantages to that structure.
I think I followed exactly what you said, and I wound up doing the LLC, and I am in Florida, but I didn't understand any of the risks that might be associated with that. If somebody wants to contact you or your firm, can you just kind of throw that information out, and then we'll do that every once in a while because you might be talking directly to somebody that's watching this, and this is the question that they came for. So I want them to give them an easy way to contact you. How would they reach you?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. You can email me directly. My email is M for Michelle Notte, Notte, at tels, T-E-L-S dot legal. Or you can go to our website, www.theentrepreneurlawyers.com. Double check the spelling of entrepreneur. Even attorneys get it wrong. And just fill out our intake form. We have a fantastic intake team. They'll reach out to you within 24 hours, if not sooner, and get you set up with our team.
Perfect. Now that's a perfect segue for my next question is that how do you protect your brand name? I know that you guys kind of just went through a rebranding of your own.
Yes, we
And how
did.
do you protect logos and creative content? Do you do it through trademarks? Do you do it through copyrights? Can you kind of make that anti-stuffy in a few minutes?
Yes, I will do my best because I could do a whole day seminar on that. Okay, so the best anti-stuffy advice I can give my fellow entrepreneurs listening is do not wait to protect your brand if you are in a products-based industry or if you are in a service-based industry that's going to be operating outside of your state. And the reason being is that a federal trademark protects you from all 50 in all 50 states, right? So if I've got the entrepreneur lawyers operating in Florida, but someone decides to set up the entrepreneur lawyers in Washington state, they are going to get a cease and desist. Why? Because we have a federally registered trademark, the entrepreneur lawyers. So that is when you have a product-based company, as I mentioned, right? You're trying to get your name out there, your brand out there. What happens if 2 years into it you're now grossing 1 million in revenue and you call me and you say, hey Michelle, there's this company out in California that's doing not exactly what we're, because people always make the mistake thinking it has to be exactly the same. That's wrong. It could be closely related. Maybe they don't have a law firm, maybe they have a podcast talking about legal services. That is a problem because if they beat you to the punch and they got their trademark registered first, even if you started using yours first, now you're going to have to spend a lot of money in legal fees to have your right to stop them from using that brand, which tarnishes your reputation. So, brand management is extremely important early on. I have a client that's going through this, unfortunately. Um, and we knew the risk going into using that mark, spent 250 grand on products, and we were hoping the other side would be reasonable. And it doesn't always work out that way. And then you find yourself having to rebrand. So you want to know those risks before you start operating and get 100 million followers on TikTok.
I am so glad that you're my business lawyer because that stuff just drives me nuts. And it's complicated, and I also know that you actually have attorneys that are very smart that use your services because it's so specialized in that. So it just speaks volumes of how confusing this thing could be and how important it is to have somebody that lives this and knows the ins and outs of it. The next couple of questions have to kind of segue right into this about contracts because if someone violates something or an agreement, they're crucial. I mean, I'm using you guys for my contract. And it's very important because it sets like the tone for my clients to understand what is their responsibility, what is my responsibility. But I know that there's probably a lot of common mistakes in contracts that people don't realize. Can you kind of just go over like some of the most common mistakes that businesses?
I already thought of one while you were talking.
Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
absolutely. The biggest mistake that they make, especially when they're legal zooming or chat GPTing their own contracts, is they forget to put an attorney's fee provision in there. And what an attorney's fee provision is a clause in your contract that says if one of us screws up and breaches our contract and has to sue the other, the person who wins gets attorney's fees. And the reason that's important is that a lot of states, Florida is one of them, you only are entitled to recover your attorney's fees if it's built into the contract or if you're suing under a particular statute that allows for the recovery of attorney's fees, which many don't. So that is one basic, simple, super important. I don't care if you put one line in there that says if one party breaches the agreement and the other party has to sue the other party to recover, the party who wins gets attorney's fees. It doesn't even have to be, of course, if we get it, we're going to legalize it a little bit, but that's fine. At least we can go in front of a judge and argue, hey, we won. We should get our 100 grand in attorney's fees back because they forced us to have to spend this money.
Wow, that's big right there. I just actually took another note on that because I want to make sure, even though I'm fairly confident it must be in mine, but I want to double check that. Um, so as I do websites, a lot of people say about the privacy statements or the refund policies or this thing with disclosing cookies and stuff like that. Does your firm handle those aspects of generating that?
Yes, and I'm actually so thrilled because we now have someone who is so well versed and loves this stuff. Like he nerds out over this stuff. One of our partners, Arib, he's very big in the tech space. And while we did do this, we've always done this. You know, I'm not gonna lie, it's not something that excites me and lights me up inside, like franchising or securities. So when I would get those types of, jobs from my clients, I would always, of course, make sure that we're current on all the laws, especially with cookies. California's huge on this. They have the CCPA and what was the other ones? It's another CC acronym, and they just added a third. They have like three different data privacy and disclosure laws that you have to comply with. And it doesn't even matter if you're not offering services or products to someone in their state. If they can access your website, you have to comply. So you pretty much want to make sure you're in compliance already. But yes, we do all of those things. We make sure that we are up to date on all of the current laws for terms of use and data privacy policies. That also includes if you are targeting anybody outside of the United States and Europe. A lot of people have heard about GDPR.
Yes.
GDPR compliance is huge nowadays. So you really want to make sure that you and your attorneys are protecting you in that aspect.
Okay. So just in that point, a US based company should still concern themselves with international GDPR.
Yeah, if they are doing anything that would target, intentionally target, users or visitors of that site
Okay.
from outside of the United States that are in the European Union, you definitely want to make sure
Okay.
that you're GDPR compliant.
But if you're not, then it's not really something that you have
It
to.
shouldn't be something that comes up. They're not as litigious over there as we are over here.
Okay. All
So
right.
I have not seen it come up in my practice. That's not to say that it can't come up, but I do think it's less of a risk.
Yeah, because I just don't want to burden a client with having several different disclosures or
Yeah.
pop-ups if they don't need it on it.
Absolutely.
So,
We always tell our clients so they're aware of it, but we're very transparent and we're very budget conscious. So we tell them, like, listen, could you spend another 3 grand to make sure you're GDPR compliant? Sure.
yeah.
Is it really necessary? That's a risk assessment you're going to have to make as a business owner.
Okay. The next couple of questions have to deal with growth and scaling of a business. It seems like every entrepreneur, you guys as well as myself, we're always trying to scale and grow, scale and grow and scale. And I don't know if that cycle ever ends, but I
Does
know,
it? Does it,
yeah,
Ray?
I don't think it does. I mean, I'm trying to scale right now. I have project managers that
Oh, man.
so it's tough. And with that scaling, the legal steps that you should do when a business is growing and hiring, maybe if they're full-time employees or contract employees, how do you handle non-competes and confidentiality agreements? Can you just, I know that's a big subject.
It
Can,
is. It's a loaded question. And I do
yeah,
have a book I'll recommend for anybody listening and you as well, which I'm still listening to, but I'm very much enjoying. I like a lot of science-based, research-based books, and it's called The Science of Scaling. It's absolutely fantastic. It really focuses on, so far, on really niching down and simplifying the services or product you're offering to just focus on what you're really good at and getting rid of all the noise. But on that front, I will say from a legal perspective, it's really important that as you're scaling, you have an attorney on your team. And I'm not just saying this to like promote our services or anything. Like if it's not us, I don't care, find somebody else. but make sure that you are communicating with your attorney and that you have an attorney who's actually listening to what you're saying. Because if I have a client that comes to me and says, we're a mom and pop shop, we've got 5 employees, we're happy here. Like, this is the stage we're at. We're not growing, like, we're very comfortable. We're okay, no problem. We'll look at what they're at currently, what they need done. We maintain every 2 years, check their contracts, check the way that they operate, make sure that everything still makes sense. But if you come to us and you tell us, okay, I have a client I can think of right now. She's got an app. It's about 90% done. It's going to be in dealerships across the US. And that is a company that is going to scale pretty quickly. In fact, I would predict that they would be bought out by private equity in 3 to 5 years. So, knowing that as her attorney, right, I have to make sure that not only are her organic documents, which is what we refer to as basically the business documents, right? Like, we're an LLC, we're a corporation. Do I have a shareholders agreement? Do I have an Great. That's baseline. Check, done. Then after that, intellectual property. Is my intellectual property protected? Not just patents, trademarks, but also, very importantly and often overlooked, trade secret. All of these relationships that I've built now with dealerships, AutoNation, all over the United States, all these VPs that I have their personal phone numbers and their contact information, is that information secure and protected from the other employees of the firm? Because if not, that's not trade secret. It's not protected anymore. I haven't taken a step to protect it. Then after that, it's okay. Do you have employees? Do you have contractors or employees? You may think you have contractors, but you may actually have employees and you're calling them contractors. And guess what? The law says they're employees. Now we have to make sure, do you have employer policies? Are you following what your employer policies say? All of those aspects that are ripe for litigation, because there is nothing that will bankrupt a startup or a burgeoning entrepreneur faster than a lawsuit that is not covered by your insurance.
Hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
Because I'll tell you that we, the litigators that are not part of your insurance plan, are not cheap. So you don't want to get hit by a lawsuit that you're going to have to settle because it's going to cost you less to settle than to fight it.
Okay.
So it's really, as you're scaling, communicating with your team, and your team is your attorney, your tax advisor and or CPA, probably both, and your insurance broker. Are they covering all the gaps that you need to cover as you scale? Because what got you to 1 million is not going to get you to 10 million.
Okay. Just I want to follow up on two things. The contractor versus the employee. You said that you may not know that what you think is a contractor is actually an employee.
Yep.
Does it matter? Like I have contractors that I have that work for me, and I give them an email address that has my domain email on it. So
Sure.
when they are contacting a client, they're contacting them with my email address.
Mhm.
Is that one of those issues that I might not knowingly be treating them like an employee versus a
No,
contract?
and that's a fantastic question. In fact, I that would be a great CLE, great seminar, webinar, whatever you want to call it. So there are two issues we're actually talking about right now. We're talking about, as an employer, am I potentially exposing myself to a lawsuit by someone who claims that I either didn't pay them their hourly rate or overtime, or I
Okay.
discriminated against them because they're or a true story, had one of these also, or the IRS is now coming after me years later because that contractor failed to pay their taxes to the IRS. And when the IRS contacted them, they said, "Oh, I thought my employer was doing it when I was really a contractor." So that's why an independent contractor agreement is super important if you have true independent contractors. Now, the second part of this question that you're really asking is, am I exposing myself to liability by giving my contractors an email address where they're holding themselves out as a representative of my company? And the answer to that is yes, but it's a different type of liability exposure. And the liability exposure that you're exposing yourself to is called vicarious liability. And what that means is, if that person that's acting as you're a representative of your company is reaching out to somebody, and let's say they're harassing them, let's say they're sending inappropriate messages or images or whatever, and then the company, your company, gets sued by someone for those text messages, emails, whatever, that's still that company's responsibility, because even though they're not your employee, they're acting with what's called apparent authority. And that's an agency relationship, which I won't get into legal terminology. Basically, it means you're responsible for their actions, even if you didn't know about it, because they're acting on your behalf.
Okay. And is that something that the contract between me and the contractor would help? Uh,
You can help offset some of that liability, absolutely, by requiring indemnification. So we can include indemnification language that basically says if the contractor takes any actions which cause damage to the company that are not directly attributable to the company's actions or omissions, that the contractor will indemnify the
okay.
company for any
Got it.
losses incurred or faced. Now, as a litigator, I can tell you how much that's worth depends on how much money that person actually has. Because if they're liquid and they have nothing, good luck. You can't get blood from a stone. But
Yes.
yes, that's an additional protective mechanism you can put in your contract and should absolutely.
The more this interview kind of goes on, the more I just realize how much people need your services, no doubt. Um, Going with the growing, you're getting bigger, the company is scaling, you take on a business partner. I know that there's a term business divorce, and I know that you handle that as well because the best intentions sometimes don't work out. So, can you kind of explain what safeguards maybe if they are scaling, they maybe want to pump the brakes a little bit to say, hey, before I take on a business partner, what do I need to do? Or if I did take on a business partner before they ever heard this interview and now they're stuck, what do they need to be thinking about at that point?
I cannot beg the listeners enough. If you have not gone into business with somebody yet, do not do so until you have an agreement in place before they start, before they join your business that spells out the following specific areas. What happens if we don't want to work together anymore? What happens if I get disabled and I can't perform my job? And what does disabled actually mean? And for how long? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? I had one firm that was okay with a year because they dealt in catastrophic injuries, so they'd seen the worst. What happens if one of us gets divorced? Do I want to now be operating with your spouse? Probably not. What happens if one of us dies? Because, newsflash, in many states, such as Florida, doesn't matter if you have a will, if you have a contract in your business that says what happens to your interest when you die, that one trumps. Um, what happens if we need money? We need money. The business can't operate now. Are we making a capital call? Are we both putting money in, or do we have to secure outside financing? So those are the types of issues that you must, absolutely must make sure your attorney is including in your agreement. And if you get that agreement, and I've seen so many, it actually scares the crap out of me, from business attorneys that don't include what to do in those scenarios, you need to hire another attorney.
I was busy taking notes there. I appreciate that. So that actually kind of goes into what I was saying about risk management, for businesses. That specific question also came up. It said, what's the best way for entrepreneurs to resolve issues without costly litigation? It seems like you already answered that is by front loading your contract to make sure that you have those questions already answered. Is there anything else that a business owner can do if they're facing a business dispute to help resolve it without
Yes.
costly litigation?
Yeah, definitely. Listen, I'm not saying you got to call an attorney the second you have a business dispute. 100%. Try to resolve it on your own, amicably with the other side. But do not, this is what you should not do. You reach an agreement with the other side. Okay, this is what we agreed to. Don't just think I don't need an attorney, I'm done. No, hire an attorney to draft the settlement agreement, which is only a couple thousand, like 2 to 3 thousand max, that lays out, well, I don't want to say max, depends on how complicated your settlement is, but in many cases, that lays out exactly what the parties are agreeing to and that we both agree that this resolves all our issues. You can't come back and try and sue me later because people think, oh, but we resolved it. Not necessarily. If you don't have everything clearly spelled out and there's a loophole out of it, you could still get sued for that same issue. So that's the first thing is if you have a dispute that is, coming up on the horizon and it doesn't hurt to just talk to a business attorney. I do consults all the time and I don't know if this is good business practice or bad business practice, but I often give a lot of free advice in those consults so that if it can be resolved without us, they can, and they just come back to us when it's resolved so we can formalize it.
Yeah.
Because that will avoid that literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in a lawsuit.
This is an example of what attracted me to you guys is how forthright with information you are without it feeling pressured or any kind of stress or worrying about the bill that might come. You guys have taken that all out of that equation for me, and that's
Thank
why I
you.
highly recommend other businesses check you guys out. We're going to wrap it up with just a couple of last questions, Michelle,
Sure.
and it's about future-proofing your business. I mean, everything from AI moving so quickly to just running a business and time flies by. And I might be still using the same contract that you guys provided for me a years ago. How often should we kind of be maybe revising or looking at operating agreements, contracts? Is there, like in the fire service, as you know, I'm also a full-time firefighter. We have a thing like you give your smoke detector a birthday, so you know how to change the batteries in your smoke detectors in your house. Is there such a kind of rule of thumb with contracts for businesses that you can speak about?
I don't think there's an industry specific rule of thumb, but I can tell you after representing probably now, I really have meant to go back and count. It's got to be at least close to 1,000, if not exceeding 1,000 entrepreneurs at this point. Um, Definitely every 2 years at a minimum. Every 2 years, I would love every year a checkup, just to check up to say, hey, this is what how we're operating our business now. This is the contract you prepared for me a year ago. I've looked at it. I've had some. Let us know what your pain points are. I've had some pushback on this provision. We may find that, hey, this is protective of you, but it's also causing you to lose business. Maybe there are other ways we can protect you and modify that provision. We're not going to know that without feedback. So I would say ideally once a year, but really at least every 2 years. Every 2 years, you should be checking your contracts to make sure that they match current industry terms and your business's current operations.
Okay. One thing that I just to counter on this a little bit is that it's not really a counter, just to give you some feedback. Prior to having a contract, I felt like, hey, if I slap this contract in front of a client, there's going to be pushback and they're going to be like, well, I'm not signing that 5-page document, but it hasn't been that at all. They
Oh, well,
kind of,
that's good to know because we
it
have had
kind
some
of,
situations where like you got to shorten this. I'm getting too much pushback, and we're like, oh, okay,
yeah. Well, mine is shorter than 5 pages, but
that's
my
great.
point is that I think the client also appreciates that I have a contract because
Absolutely.
it kind of sets myself more professional than just saying, "Oh, I'll take care of that," and there's nothing to sign, and you just start working. So, um, do, do you feel like there should be, if it's a service oriented business, 2-page, 3-page, kind of contract is all that's needed, or can we
I
get it?
I think it depends on what the service is that you're providing. And I'll give you an example. And I'm sorry about the sun is coming through
Yeah.
my window shades right now, so it's making it really bright. A perfect example would be, we hear about all these coaching businesses and consulting businesses. That can be very vague. And so a lot of times we find that once we start talking to the coaches and what exactly it is that they provide and what their deliverables are, that contract gets a lot longer because it's such an abstract type of service. We really want to try to nail down without narrowing it so much that we're putting them into a corner what they provide because we found that it improves the exactly what you're talking about client expectation, right? The client knows this is the deliverable I'm getting out of this service and this is what I expect to pay for it and when those deliverables will be delivered. But there are some cases where I've never seen a 2 to 3 page contract that's comprehensive enough. I would say five is probably the minimum.
Okay.
And it depends. It depends on the industry. If I have a commercial lighting company that's a distributor, which I do have, we have actually a few, those will be a lot lengthier, right? Because of industry terms. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question. Sorry, that was
I think you did. You said 5 pages probably about average for a contract, and
for a simple, yes,
yeah,
simple
simple.
contract.
And it's funny about client expectations because I also do video work, as you know, and um, when I show up and I have just like an iPhone versus like a DSLR camera that I do have, and the DSLR camera is much more expensive, but the iPhones do an awesome job. But I find myself still having to tote my camera bag and my other equipment just for that client expectation. And then in the end, I'm doing videos on an iPhone. So I kind of can relate to the client expectation part of what you just said. Um, I get okay. So now my business has grown. I'm on top of the world. I want to sell my business. But I know there's probably some legal steps I should do, and every entrepreneur should do to take before selling a business. So can you kind of just nail put the 2 minute kind of spin on how to best execute that if possible?
Yeah, I'll start by saying first, know that you're going to sell 5 years before you sell. I know that sounds crazy, but if you're even thinking about toying with the idea that I think I'm going to sell in, a couple years, I may not want to do this forever, you're going to want to start planning early. You're going to want to start making your trademarks are secured, your policies and processes are set up because when someone's purchasing a business, and we've represent tons of buyers and sellers of businesses over the years, what they're looking at is the value that I'm getting from that business right now something I'm going to be able to replicate in the next 2 to 3 years. And they're going to look at all of that in their due diligence process. So that's the first step. Plan way ahead of the time that you actually want to sell your business. The second thing I would say is at a minimum, 1 year out, or it doesn't have to be a year out. Listen, of course, I get those clients that I love
Yeah.
that are regulars that come back. Hey, Michelle, we're buying another location. Everything's ready. We just need you to review it. Okay, okay. This is going to be an all-nighter. Um, can we do it? Yes, but really, you want to give the attorneys enough time to look at what you have in place currently to make sure that we don't have to do cleanup because we're going to have to do cleanup at some point. Could you close without any of that stuff? Look, I have a broker for the second, one of the largest business brokerages in the United States. Okay. I was shocked to be on a call the other day with this broker who I respect, great gentleman. However, oh no, we use our standard, broker sales agreement, blah, 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 blah. And I already knew just by the things he was saying on the phone. Oh no, non-compete. Yeah, 5 years, 100 miles. I'm like, wait a second, wait a second, wait a second. My ladies want to do business within 50 miles and 5 years is way too long. Like, no, there's got to be a workaround. The buyers have to know that this is part of the deal. So I would say to go back and answer your original question is plan early, let us know early what you want to get out of this deal so that if you're working with a business broker or someone else to help you sell your business, cool. We're not going to try to come in there and screw the deal up, but we want to make sure you're protected and that you're not agreeing to something that you didn't realize you were agreeing to that prohibits you from generating revenue after that.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Now, I want to ask because I forgot to ask this earlier. Um, Businesses in Florida, businesses in Ohio, businesses in where in the country can you help businesses out? Can
So hopefully soon, Ohio again. I don't know when this is going to air. I'm licensed through November 5th of 2025 until the Supreme Court finishes reviewing my application. I've been recommended by the committee that reviews the applications, but I still, of course, need the respectable stamp of approval from the Supreme Court of Ohio. But we should hopefully soon be accepting more clients in Ohio. Um, Nationally for trademarks, franchising, and capital raising, so long as there's for not for trademarks, but for franchising and capital raising, some type of nexus to Florida, we can help someone anywhere in the United States. Trademarks, we can help someone anywhere in the United States. Um, and then also, we have attorneys licensed in California and, of course, Florida, with more states anticipated to come in the next 2 years.
So just like a business lawyer kind of question for businesses, can Florida, I mean, definitely you can help Florida, but are there other, and California? So like a business question that originates out of California.
Absolutely. We can
Um,
answer California and Florida and hopefully soon Ohio.
okay, very good. All right. Well, I do have a bonus question here, and this is something that I found interesting as well. Maybe two bonus questions, but we'll see how it goes. With AI, using it every day, people use it maybe for contracts. Can you kind of like the pitfalls of doing that? I know it's very smart, but I know you
Yes.
shared some insight as to what AI can actually do. And I think I don't want to take what you said, but can you share a little bit
Sure.
about your experience with that?
Absolutely. So our law firm has always been very technology driven. So we've been staying on top of this. And of course, AI is the talk of the town now all the time. We've been employing AI for over a year to become more efficient with our legal services. Now, that by no way means that we're relying on what AI produces, because what people don't realize with AI, which I actually just learned at an AI workshop that I went to a couple months ago in Atlanta, that was fantastic, is that AI hallucinates. And at that time, the record that had been, they had recorded 286 instances of documented AI hallucinations. And an AI hallucination is where AI will create information that is not verified, vetted, and does not exist. And that is because AI's purpose, their survival mechanism, is to continue to give you information so that you'll continue to use it. So, unfortunately, sometimes that means that it will create information that is not true. So, you always have to verify the information that AI produces for you. For us, it's no, at a law firm, it's no different than a law clerk, that's a law student that comes to you that thinks they know the answer to your question and gives you all this research. A competent attorney that wants to keep their license will still go back and check all of those sources and make sure that that's current information that's correct. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, listen, guys, AI is a great tool. Absolutely. Use it when you can. Still have an attorney review it because it will cost you hundreds of thousands. Literally, this is how we get our litigation cases. When LegalZoom was all the rage, several years ago, and attorneys were losing their minds about we're going to lose our jobs, I was skeptical that that was the case. And sure enough, it proved to be true because unfortunately for the clients that have ended up using tools like that, they come to us when they end up in a lawsuit because the contract that was prepared for them was insufficient.
Yeah, it's it takes me back to one of my former fire chiefs. I got in trouble because I did something with driving the fire truck that I should not have done. It was putting the ladder down, and it was a an aerial device. So as I was putting the ladder down, I was also descending as putting it down, and I struck a ladder that sits on the side of the fire truck. And it bothered me, because I'm a generational firefighter. Both my grandfathers were firefighters, my dad, and I didn't want any kind of stain on my record. And the chief, totally, I respect him, love this guy. He came in and he sat me down and he said, "So I read your memo," and he goes, "What'd you take out of this?" And I said, "Well, you know what? I was trying to rush." He goes, "The moral I want you to take away is that you should not take any shortcuts in life.
Oh,
Shortcuts lead to bigger issues. And so that's what kind of made me think about this here is that people may be taking AI as a shortcut, but they should be verifying that information because it could lead to, I would hate to have a contract that was solely AI thinking that, yeah, I got this thing wrapped up, only to find that an and or was put in there that meant all the difference in the world. So,
yeah.
um, and I never heard about that AI hallucinations. That's scary to me because I use AI
Yeah.
a lot, but that is scary to know that. Um, but I'm glad that you guys are on top of it, and it makes me feel better knowing that you guys did my
Listen,
contract.
before I even went out to that workshop, I do a lot of work in capital raising and securities, when people want to raise money for their company and all of that. And I was using ChatGPT, the paid version, to help me, get to some research nuanced issues faster because I couldn't remember the exact statutory reference.
Yeah,
And ChatGPT gave me the answer, and I was like, that's not right. That's not how this works. That's not an exemption. And so I like went to the source, and what it had cited was not at all the answer to the question that I like, it was so off.
yeah,
So after that, I told my attorneys, I was like, listen, guys, and it's happened twice, by the way. That was the first time, and it happened one more time after that with a different statute. You cannot trust ChatGPT or any of these AI functions fully. You have to review and vet your sources. And remember that they're basically aggregating data from the World Wide Web, right? When you have an AI tool, such as the one that we use internally for contract review and drafting, we still draft using our documents that we've created over the years. But this particular AI tool is designed for the legal industry. So it's got years of information. AI is only as good as the information you feed it. And this AI has been fed thousands, millions actually, of documents that are legal terminology, legal information, legal statutes. So you got to be careful of what your AI source is that you're using as well.
no doubt. I mean, it's only going to move faster. I mean, what we
Yeah,
see now is not what's going to be in front of us, a month from now, a year from now,
absolutely.
generations from now. I don't know where it's going. So I just want to say thank you again, Michelle. I
Thank
know
you for
that
having
your
me.
time is extremely valuable. You took time aside to answer these questions that some of my clients have been asking, and hopefully this video will help them. And can you just, as we wrap up, tell me again your company, who do you specialize in servicing, and how they can contact you, and we'll
Absolutely.
wrap it up with that.
So we serve serial entrepreneurs. Not that we won't help a startup, but serial entrepreneurs, that's our ideal client. And you can go to our website, www.theentrepreneurlawyers.com. We are the anti-stuffy business law firm and the unicorn of business law firms. And I think you'll find that to be true if you give us a chance to serve you. And I can be reached at mnotte, N-O-T-T-E, at tels, T-E-L-S, .legal.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for taking the time. I look forward to talking to you guys in the near future, and I appreciate all the help that you've given me in my business. So,
Absolutely. And thank you for giving us a chance to serve you. And thank you for managing all of our website chaos for the last
yeah,
several years.
no problem. I appreciate you.
Thanks.